This is the Bizgnus Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
A top expert on manufacturing logistics sees good times ahead for U.S. companies and their workers as more firms bring jobs back from Asia. She's Lisa Anderson, a Claremont, California-based consultant. She says nearshoring, which is getting operations set up in places close to the U.S. like Mexico, and reshoring, bringing the jobs actually back into this country, are a new reality. Lisa Anderson talks about what could become a major shift in the economy in this Bizgnus podcast. Lisa, to prepare our listeners and viewers for the interview, would you take a moment to first explain what do you mean by the terms reshoring and nearshoring?
Sure. So reshoring is bringing production back to where it was originally, in essence. So early on, we produced everything, well, most everything, in the United States. And then we offshored to China and other places in Asia for many years. And so reshoring is bringing it back to its original shore, if you will, which is the United States. And then nearshoring, what I mean by that is it's in essence moving production back to, well, it doesn't have to be back, but moving production closer to the customer. But it also implies, because it's got the word shoring in it, that it's bringing it back. Well, it's at least moving it across the ocean and moving it closer to the customer. So it could be, like, for example, we have lots of customers and consumers in the United States. So it could be moving production back to Mexico, as an example, because they have lower labor costs and lower costs in general, but it's still located very close to customers that are in the United States. So that's generally speaking how folks use the terms, but they also get mixed up and interchanged.
You seem to be pretty optimistic about a return of at least some of those manufacturing jobs that were sent to low-cost labor countries. But why are you optimistic in this regard?
All right. Well, for many reasons. So, for example, one of my clients had offshored, just like everyone else, and moved production to China many years ago. And they were ahead of the crowd, and they ended up moving most of that from China to Vietnam. Now they are ahead of the crowd again, and they are moving production to Mexico, since they have facilities in Mexico. 80% they plan to move back within the year. So that's just an example, but the reasons why is that customers are, we all have been living with the Amazon effect. So from a customer point of view, we're thinking we should get our products quickly. So lead times are continually getting shorter. And then really more important recently, since the pandemic, is the ability to be resilient. So customers are changing their mind, and in some cases, not because they planned to, just because customer expectations are evolving with the pandemic. Let's say you started off buying one product, and just as a consumer, you can think about this. If that product wasn't available, you still needed something. So you bought a different product to replace the product that you used to buy. And you found out, well, you know what? I kind of like this feature about this new product. And so suddenly you're thinking, well, you know what? I might stick with this new product, or I might change to evolve further. So like the customer's expectations are continually evolving based on what's been happening with the pandemic. And manufacturers have to be able to be more resilient to keep up with these changing expectations, or we will be in this supply chain disrupted world for years to come. That's one of the reasons. I could keep going, but if you want to, I don't want to just talk the whole time without you allowing you to answer questions or.
Well, no, not a problem. My job is to ask the dumb questions, and I guess yours is to answer it very smartly, as you have been doing.
Or
But now, Lisa, the talking heads on TV are continuously yammering daily, it seems, about supply chain problems. Well, supply chain issues are at the heart of your experience. How did we get into this fix? Tell us about that first off.
All right, I will. And I should throw out one more thing that occurred to me that your listeners are probably thinking about. And that is, what about the fact that labor costs are still higher here than they are in China, right? So what I would tell you is that the amount of the labor cost as a percent of the total cost in a product has gone down significantly over the years, because we have, for many reasons. One is just we've redesigned products, we've automated, the cost of transportation keeps going up, for example. So the percentage of labor costs has gone down. Also, the labor cost in like places like China continually goes up. And if you look at it as a total cost, the total costs for non-commodity products, if it's lightweight, easy to ship, small, and high labor component, it's not going to be produced in the US for less money than it will be in China. However, for all the other products, if you add up all the costs and all the inventory and everything in the supply chain, even pre-pandemic, the costs were largely in alignment. And Mexico's labor costs are actually less than China's are. So it's more a matter of folks moved over and they invested capital, and then they became stuck there, and we have to find a way back. So anyway, I wanted to throw that out because I remembered that. I thought that might be important to your listeners. Now, how do we get into this situation? Well, it did start with the pandemic. So the pandemic, it's been a lot of things that's added up. So what happened during the pandemic is that Asia shut down first. And we were actually going like gangbusters in the US. So nothing was being produced in Asia, as an example. But we were buying. Then Asia started opening up and we shut down in the US. And so at the time, it's easier to explain with like the summer season of clothes. So we had, like, for example, the summer season of clothes in warehouses, but we shut down. So no one is buying. Well, no one was going out. So no one needed to buy these clothes that were in the warehouses, and they couldn't go out and buy them anyway. They could perhaps buy them online, but they weren't. So basically they're still in the warehouses. They were never purchased. Then we start to open up here. Well, now we're done with the summer, like that's over. We want, fall season or winter season. So now, but China was shut down. So those were delayed. And then, it's like this never ending cycle. Once they arrive, then we still have these other clothes in the warehouses. So we now have to find new warehouses. That's just a warehouse example, but the same thing is going on like at the ports. So we don't have basically all the equipment, like there's chassis that you use to pull product off of the container. There aren't enough chassis because they're sitting out in all these yards because we have so much product. It's just the wrong product. So the wrong products are in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the wrong transportation, like chassis, equipment, trucks, drivers, like everything is in the wrong place at the wrong time. So the supply chain is out of alignment. And then it was aggravated, of course, by other things, such as the Suez Canal. There was a ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal. So everybody started rerouting. Well, not everybody, but some people were stuck there, and they were just delayed. Others decided, you know what, I should reroute, and I should go a different route, or maybe I'll use a different mode of transportation. And so they or go to a different port. So basically they changed, similar to what I was saying earlier, consumers changing their buying behaviors, businesses also changed buying behaviors, and they just moved to a different place. However, none of those moves were planned. So now we have less going through the Suez Canal, but all the equipment and everything's there, and more going to other places where the equipment is not. And then we also had like the freeze in Texas, which increased the demand for several products like piping and those kinds of things because they broke. And it also stopped production for a few weeks, also stopping everything that was in motion, further delaying things. So basically what I'm saying is a series of events that has gotten us to this point. And then we are also further aggravated now by the fact that there are no people available anyway. There's a great resignation and a great reshuffling going on. So even if you can get, and it's not all about products we buy from overseas, a lot of what's coming on boats and other modes, even trucks, there's no truckers, is materials to produce in the US. And several of my clients, it's a constant battle, like where they're constantly looking at material shortages here or there, having to test new materials, figure out creative solutions, those kinds of things. So it's that's how we got here. Does that help?
It sounds like an absolute nightmare, Lisa. Is this something that the market will solve, the great market, quote unquote, or is this a government solution that has to be applied?
Well, I think it's going to have to be a combination of people working together. Basically, we have to realign our supply chain, and we have to also, it's not also going back to normal. There's going to be like a new normal, because after all, we just got finished talking about the fact that the other reason that reshoring is happening is because of all these supply chain issues. So what executives have realized is, oh my gosh, I cannot be dependent on suppliers halfway around the world that could go out of business, that could just decide that I'm not a priority, or even if I am a priority, everything gets stuck along the way. If I'm going to stay in business, I have to find ways to at least be more resilient, to continue manufacturing. And that's if you're manufacturing already in North America or somewhere that could keep going. So, so that's why they're reshoring. They're saying, I need to bring more back. I need to partner with people who are in a region. So they're really moving more to like a regional cluster where they're going to produce in, where you can have suppliers, manufacturers in closer proximity to each other so that you can be more in control. So that's going to further change the supply chain. So I think that we are going to be in a constant state of change. That's just the new normal. So now what we need to do, doesn't mean we have to be out of alignment, but we're going to be in a constant state of change. So the smarter, proactive, innovative companies and executives are going to find ways to constantly change with this and get ahead of it. Like my client that's already moving production back. That doesn't mean it's always the right answer, but in their case, it made more sense to do it. The point is, though, they're thinking ahead and they're doing something before it's the most popular thing to do, and before it's too late, basically. So, those types of folks are going to be successful, and they're going to take volume from the rest, because the rest don't have product. And when customers no longer are willing to wait in today's world, me included, we don't want to wait. So and that's not just consumers, businesses are the same. Like businesses can't afford to wait. Their lines shut down and they can't serve their customers. So they find solutions. So the people who are resilient and can meet those needs are going to increase, are going to be more and more successful and build strength. Whereas the ones who I don't know, just don't have the cash, just don't have the people, are not innovative, are going to, dwindle, if you will. So things will continue to change, but the stronger folks will pull away from the pack, and the weaker ones are gonna, it depends on their situation, but if they're family business owners, they're like gonna sell off, or they're just gonna close up shop, or whatever they're gonna do. If it's global company, it's obviously different. They have to, still though, if they're weaker, they are going to, they probably have to realign their business, targeting something different in the future.
Lisa, would you take a moment now to tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself and your company?
Sure. So I am a business consultant. I work with manufacturers and distributors and help them through these situations we've just been talking about. So considered an expert in supply chain management, and really my sweet spot is a process that is actually one of the solutions, if you will, to this puzzle that we've been talking about. And that is, how do you realign demand and supply within a company? Because doing it throughout the world is obviously a bit more of a challenge, but for a company, and how do you prepare for the future so that you're ready to scale? And what that is it's where you're forecasting future demand, better understanding what your customers and your customers needs really are, and then finding ways to align that with your capacity. So like, what kinds of people do you need? Numbers of people, but more importantly, skills. How do you utilize technology? How do you, what kind of storage do you need? What kind of manufacturing capacity? And how do you do that in a way that serves the customer and provides profitability for the company and better working capital, which is in essence like lower levels of inventory spread throughout your supply chain. So that's what I do, and how I got to this field. I've been consulting for about 16 years now. Before that, I was a vice president of operations and supply chain for a mid-market manufacturer, and so that was great experience. It was a family-owned business that grew to over 100 million, and then they bought a division of P&G and also bought a smaller entrepreneurial company, which was a lot to take on. So we ended up doing a bit of a turnaround, and then found private equity backers, and then I ended up we merged cultures, because we had it was really quite the challenge, because we had a really entrepreneurial duct tape it type of culture and a process disciplined culture, which both had very different strengths. So we had to combine the strengths and shore up the weaknesses, which both had. So people, process, systems, it was definitely a 24/7 sort of role, but excellent experience so that I can successfully help clients today. So I am quite glad to have successfully emerged from that company, because I actually loved it at the time, had a great team, but I also would not want to do it again because it was all consuming. So I'm much happier being able to help a variety of clients and see results quickly.
You probably have a website, someplace where people can get in touch with you.
I do. It's HTTPS and then www.lma-consultinggroup.com.
Lisa, this is a puzzle that would just go on forever, it seems. A multi-dimensional chess game, if you will. But what would you like to tell our viewers and listeners that we haven't had a chance to talk about?
Well, I think what I'd like to do is give them some hope for this puzzle. So there are some things you can do that will help you be successful in this environment. So, one of those is to look at how you can be more resilient from a supply chain perspective. So evaluate where you're producing, product. You think about reshoring or nearshoring. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing state of mind either. You can look at having backup suppliers, just reassess your supply chain and reconfigure your supply chain is one. Also look at how you set up your supply chain and your partners to make sure that, because in today's world, we have a much more complex supply chain. It used to be that we had a supplier, a manufacturer, and a customer, maybe a distributor. And now, we have this global supply chain with, hundreds, if not thousands of connections. So how do you simplify your supply chain? How do you make it so that you can at least simplify, have partners that you can trust where they are resilient as well, because you're only as good as your weakest link. And if your weakest link is going to go out of business, you are in deep trouble. So you need to make sure that you have solid partners in today's environment. That's to be sure, and ones that are looking at the future. So one is to do those types of activities, which is supply chain resiliency. The second is you need to be looking at your people, because only the companies that have people and have talented people are going to succeed. And with this great reshuffling going on and the great resignation going on, you're going to have to look at your culture, and you're going to have to make sure that you are an attractive place to work. I think that we have gotten very used to, in the last, 20 years, maybe longer, of hiring leaders to fill positions instead of developing them. And it takes longer periods of time to develop people. So that's a problem, because we need everything fast, which is why we've been hiring them, but they are no longer available. So we are going to have to develop quickly. And it's just going to have to be a part of our process. So, have you put enough effort into developing and retaining, training, mentoring your people? So there's a lot that you can do there that's going to be very important, because even if you do the third thing, you're going to need more and more high-skilled people and engaged people. So the third thing is you have to look at technology and the use of data, because the other thing that relates to your first question about reshoring is, why would you reshore, and could you do that with the cost structure differences between Asia and the US? And one of the ways you can is if you're utilizing technology. So if you're automating using robotics, now you don't need to do all these things, and you shouldn't, but you should figure out, similar to reconfiguring how you produce, is let's take a step back and relook at what technology makes sense in your case and in your industry, instead of just jumping on some bandwagon. Make sure that you have a modern ERP system, because that is really quite essential in today's world. It's been important all along, but I've made a healthy career out of helping people utilize any system that they have, in addition to helping them select new systems. But really, in 80%, if not 90% of clients' cases, we could, no matter how bad their ERP system is, we could find ways to utilize it better, and they could be successful. And we can still do that. However, it's really not going to be sufficient in the future. I mean, it'll maybe help you survive, but not thrive, because you have to, in today's world, things have just changed, and your customers are more demanding. There's more requirements that are just not built in an old ERP system. So you need to modernize your ERP system. Hopefully you're already done that. And then you can use some advanced functionality, such as like the fun things everyone talks about, like AI and the Internet of Things. And how do you combine that in your manufacturing and your supply chain to be more effective, and to provide a better service to your customer and to be able to be more efficient and profitable. So technology is going to be big for both of those reasons. And so is data, because we're overloaded with data. Like there's so much data out there. It's crazy. Clients are, I could tell you 1,000 examples, which I won't because it would be too long, about clients that have problems with data and how that's oftentimes like one of the key solutions, because they have all this information, but they don't know how to access the key information to make good decisions, or to figure out what to innovate, first of all, or to even figure out what customers to target. Because in today's world, you may not be able to supply everyone. At the moment, none of my clients can supply everyone, even the smartest, but they can supply the customers of their future, their most profitable customers, their customers that have been with them through thick and thin, those kinds of things. But you have to know who those people are and which products those are, which is saying a lot for many companies. So data is your friend. You got to turn data into insights. So those are the three keys, I would say, is the supply chain, manufacturing resiliency. The second being looking at your people as a strategic asset. And then the third is technology and the use of data. And by the way, with the technology side, although it's not going to be a mass produced item at the immediately, but 3D printing and additive manufacturing can help you produce. It can be the nearshoring solution. You produce something, you print something up right close to your customer. They're happy. You have very little labor, and you are quite successful there. So there's a lot of advantages to be looking at what you need to do across the board. Does that answer your question?
I guess it does, but it also opens the door to many more questions. So hopefully we'll have you back at another time.
Absolutely. I'm always happy to do that. You've been watching the Bizgnus Podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@biznews.com. Thanks for watching.